So what's a programmer to do? We have this really awful function show that has lots of repetition and copying and pasting in it. We inherited that code from somebody else, like, oh, I guess I'll just add on to it. No, let's think about how to refactor it. We're going to go and one definition of refactoring code, changing the code to improve it, but not changing how it actually works or how it actually runs. Okay, so we're improving the architecture of the code without changing its actual run behavior. So, okay, so looking on the web page we have, we'll go to JavaScript Hiding Parts version 1. How can we greatly replace that sort of n squared size code that had n branches, each with n switch statements inside of it? And you may have thought of this. Hey, why not just, if I want to go ahead and show giraffes or whatever, show whatever particular node, let's turn everything off, turn all 5 off, and then go back and turn the one that we want on. Okay, and so that's going to be pretty straightforward program. Let's go and how can I view source of this page here? I'm sitting behind other browsers. Bring this pane up here, switch things around. Okay, so here's an improved version. It does like I say, it behaves exactly as before. But here's the code for show, much pared down. Okay. Now, if I want to add hedgehogs, I still have to do. How many times do I have to mention hedgehogs? Well, I still need to have mention down in the ID, and I still have to mention it 1, 2, 3 times here. But now up here, I only need to mention hedgehogs, the word hedgehogs once. So I've gone from however many oodles of times I mentioned hedgehogs before, 11, down to 5 with this. And our code is shorter. So it's both shorter and easier to add more animals. That's just good. That shows you've made a good step for refactoring. Okay. We are still mentioning it too many times. Okay, I don't like mentioning this all these many times. In particular, I think I can't really get rid of this, but you know, the fact that I had to mention it so many times up here, gosh, here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to go and loop over all the possible animals. That would be a lot nicer, right? So I guess I can go ahead and, if I made an array that contained all the animals that I want, the names, you know, the word aardvarks, bees, cheshires, donkeys, yeah, I could, inside here, I could maybe have JavaScript that is a for loop that creates this code or something that creates this HTML. Yeah, we'll do it a little bit differently. We're going to actually set up the HTML down here, okay? And then we're going to actually loop over the DOM. So we're going to have these 5 paragraphs in the middle of our tree here. We're going to have 5 paragraph nodes sitting in the middle of it, all siblings to each other. And we're going to loop over all the siblings. In order to loop over them, we'll need to know what the parent node is. We'll need to say, hey, I'll write some function that says loop over all the children of this particular node here. Okay, so let's go see how we might go ahead and do that. And we've already hinted a little bit at how it works. In that, when we were, before all this, when we were looking at the DOM, I think I happened in passing to just happen to mention there was an attribute called children or child nodes. Actually, both of them were there. There was something called children and something called child nodes. And that had all the children of a given node. Okay? So, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go down and look at this. Oh, this is getting beautiful here. We're going to have these paragraphs, and all they do is mention the ID that they need to handle. Okay. For right now, we're going to go ahead and write it like this. We're going to manually code these 5 links. So I'm still going to be mentioning aardvarks, bees, cheshires, and I still mention them over here, and I still mention them here. So I still get those 3 calls. Okay, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to first of all, I call it showJust, and showJust is going to say, hey, give me one sort of parent node, animal paragraphs, and within that paragraph of all its children, turn them all off except for the one I'm telling you about, aardvarks. That's what showJust is going to be doing. Okay. Now, in order for us to know about where the 5 sibling paragraphs are, we need to group them together. Okay. How do we group things together in HTML? So somehow I want a node so that all 5 paragraphs can be a child of that node. But should that be a list node? Should it be a H3 node? It's not really a level 3 header. It's not a list item, so it shouldn't be a list. It's not a table, so I shouldn't be adding a table tag. HTML has 2 tags that are kind of odd. They are tags that don't mean anything to HTML, but they just serve as essentially as parentheses. They just serve as a way to group together a bunch of other stuff inside your document. Hey, these 5 things here are all inside this tag here. Those 2 tags are div and span. Span for things within a single line, say, and div for block level things that contain paragraphs inside. So I'm going to make a div, and I named it animal paragraphs. And inside this div is where I grouped these 5 things. And this is how my program is going to know that, hey, these are the 5 paragraphs that I want all of them turned off except for one. Okay? So it's the fact that I'll put it inside a div, and then I'm going to, when I call showJust, I'm going to say, hey, for this parent, the thing with ID animal paragraphs, that div, go through all its children and turn them all off except for the one whose ID is giraffes. Okay? So let's look at showJust. And our code is getting even shorter than it was before, okay? Shorter than we had to when we explicitly turned off 5 and then turned 1. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to go loop over them, turn them all off, and then turn 1 on, okay? So here's how we're going to do it. We're going to go ahead and give me a parent ID and which child of that parent you want me to show, okay? So that's what showJust is going to be doing. Parent node gets document get element by ID. Okay, find the actual node. Like if I pass in animal paragraphs, find me the div whose ID is animal paragraphs. It doesn't have to be a div. This code doesn't care that it's a div. It just says give me a node with children. Okay, and give me the name of it. Okay, so do they get element? We have the parent node. We're going to make a local variable called a child. Okay, and here's what we're going to do. For I get 0, I is less than parent node.children, okay, that's going to be the .children node, a children attribute of a JavaScript node, of a DOM node is it's a list or array or something. I don't really care too much about it. I think it's technically an array of all its children nodes. Okay, so parent children, if it's an array, I can look at the dot length of that array. So I get 0, I less than the length of the array, plus I. Here's what I'll do. I probably shouldn't declare this variable out here if I don't need to. I'll go clean that code up. Make a new variable a child, set it to the ith child, and set that to be none. So that's my loop that turns all the things off. Then we do the one last step and we say, hey, set the display to be the empty string, meaning normal display style. Document.getElement by ID child to show .style.display. If you think about it, it's kind of weird that, you know, if child to show ID is not actually something that occurred inside parent ID, this code doesn't really care. It turns off everything in parent ID and it turns on child to show wherever those happen to be anywhere in the document. Okay, so that's pretty cool. showJust is, we've now taken it up a level. Now you can go and add many more paragraphs here. And often you have a web developer who's more programming oriented, and then you have a web designer or web content person who's putting in stuff. So yeah, they'll farm out to an intern like, oh great, we have this page with 5 animals here at the zoo. Hey intern, here's 94 animals and what we want you to say about them go get our web page to work. The intern goes and looks at this and figures out, oh, okay, I can go ahead and add more paragraph tags, and probably figures out, okay, I see that there's this pattern here, and I'll just sort of follow the pattern and get that. But they don't need to touch this JavaScript loop anymore. They don't need to touch the function showJust like they would have had in our previous version. So all they need to do is add HTML stuff. They don't need to add any actual JavaScript beyond this onClick attribute here. So yeah, I think this is definitely a refactoring that has improved things a fair amount. I like this level of refactoring. I add hedgehogs. Am I still having to type hedgehogs a bunch of times? Yeah, I'd like to get rid of that. We'll come back next time and do even better. But this is good. I like this. I would call this A- A level code here. Once I get rid of that stupid duplicate variable declaration I have in there. Oops, how embarrassing.